The history, there's this fighting back and forth over who issues money, occurred a little bit in England, but no country has ever fought this more than the United States, where it's changed hands back and forth on 7 different occasions. For whatever reason, we've understood more deeply than any other country that this issuance of money and who controls its quantity is really such a key issue. Unfortunately, of course, that has not been an issue since the death of, since shortly before the Federal Reserve came in 1913. And it's disappeared from our history books. Of course, there were the bank wars, where the first bank in the United States came, and then Congress finally kicked it out, and then the second bank in the United States came, and which of course is merely an arm of the Bank of England, and we're about to see how Andy Jackson killed that. It took the entire 8 years of his presidency to do so, but when Jackson died, he only put one thing on his tomb, not that he was the hero of the Battle of New Orleans, not that he was a 2-term president of the United States, but the one inscription on his tomb at the Hermitage is, "I killed the bank."
All right.
We're having some technical problems. Yeah. I don't know. I don't like the direction.
Repeat the question, please.
The question was, why is this going to be the last time that I'm going to speak? And I'd rather not get into it. I don't like the direction, the way the community is going. It's just taken an anti-government tone that I just don't want to be a part of. And unless there's really this reestablishment that, yeah, we have a great system, it's not tuned the way that we expect it to be, then I'd be happy to be a part of that community. But I just... I've got other things to do in life, and I'll be still selling my stuff. My kids will be selling my stuff after I die, I hope.
Bill?
Yeah.
From what you just stated, I can't help feel somewhat responsible, because my particular presentation and my delivery, I attempt to try to get people motivated to jump into action. I mean, we have a situation where we can't seem to vote these people out because the voting systems have been corrupted. We can't get the word out because our media is controlled. We can't get these people arrested because the justice system is corrupted. And the only thing that I can see is somehow peaceful resistance and demonstration. And I would personally never advocate...
Why do you think you have a radio show if the media is controlled?
I'm talking about...
None of us would know any of this without the power of talk radio in the past 10 or 15 years. There's no other country that has such freedom.
So, Bill, what's the solution?
Well, the solution is, first of all, you've got to cut their monetary knees out from under them.
Yeah. Here, here.
How do we do that?
Get rid of the IRS.
That's my whole point, Bill.
That's good.
We have to educate America.
Okay, Dave, you've had your time.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I think maybe no matter what you try to do, if as long as they're still empowered with this type of money that they can create out of nothing, I think they're always going to find a way to defeat us. We're ready to go for it. New privately owned central bank in America as well. After 12 years of manipulations of the U.S. economy on the part of the second bank of the U.S., the American people had had just about enough. Opponents of the bank nominated a dignified senator from Tennessee, Andrew Jackson, the hero of the Battle of New Orleans, to run for president. This is his home, the Hermitage. No one gave Jackson a chance initially. The bank had long ago learned how the political process could be controlled with money. To the surprise and dismay of the money changers, Jackson was swept into office in 1828. Jackson was determined to kill the bank at the first opportunity and wasted no time in trying to do so. But the bank's 20-year charter didn't come up for renewal until 1836, the last year of his second term, if he could survive that long.
During his first term, Jackson contented himself with rooting out the bank's many minions from government service. He fired 2,000 of the 11,000 employees of the federal government. In 1832, with his re-election approaching, the bank struck an early blow, hoping Jackson would not want to stir up controversy. They asked Congress to pass a renewal bill 4 years early. Naturally, Congress complied, then sent it to the president for signing. But Jackson weighed in with both feet. Old Hickory, never a coward, vetoed the bill. His veto message is one of the great American documents. It clearly lays out the responsibility of the American government towards its citizens, rich and poor.
It is not our own citizens only who are to receive the bounty of our government. More than 8 millions of the stock of this bank are held by foreigners. Is there no danger to our liberty and independence in a bank that in its nature has so little to bind it to our country? Controlling our currency, receiving our public monies, and holding thousands of our citizens' independence would be more formidable and dangerous than a military power of the enemy. If government would confine itself to equal protection and, as heaven does its rains, shower its favor alike on the high and the low, the rich and the poor, it would be an unqualified blessing. In the act before me, there seems to be a wide and unnecessary departure from these just principles.
Later that year, in July 1832, Congress was unable to override Jackson's veto. Now Jackson had to stand for re-election. Jackson took his argument directly to the people. For the first time in U.S. history, Jackson took his presidential campaign on the road. Before then, presidential candidates stayed at home and looked presidential. His campaign slogan was Jackson and no bank. The National Republican Party ran Senator Henry Clay against Jackson. Despite the fact that the bankers poured over $3 million into Clay's campaign, Jackson was reelected by a landslide in November of 1832. Despite his presidential victory, Jackson knew the battle was only beginning. The hydra of corruption is only scotched, not dead, said the newly elected president. Jackson ordered his new Secretary of Treasury, Lewis McLean, to start removing the government's deposits from the second bank and start placing them in state banks. But McLean refused to do so. Jackson fired him and appointed William J. Duane as the new Secretary of the Treasury. Duane also refused to comply with the president's requests, and so Jackson fired him as well, and then appointed Roger B. Taney to the office. Taney did withdraw government funds from the bank starting on October 1st, 1833.
Can you stop for a second? I'd imagine the constitutional crisis here. The newly elected president, re-elected by a landslide, whose campaign, his whole campaign slogan was Jackson and no bank. Then when he gets in office, he orders his Secretary of the Treasury to withdraw all the funds from the second bank of the U.S. to try to kill it that way. The Secretary of Treasury refuses. Jackson appoints a new Secretary of Treasury, and he refuses. And finally he appoints another guy who finally does it. I mean, this was war. This was mega war internally, and it gets worse. Go ahead.
Jubilant. I have a chain. I'm ready with screws to draw every tooth and then the stumps.
Get him, Jackson.
But the bank was not yet done fighting. Its head, Nicholas Biddle, used his influence to get the Senate to reject Taney's nomination. Then, in a rare show of arrogance, Biddle threatened to cause a depression if the bank was not rechartered.
This worthy president thinks that because he has scalped Indians and imprisoned judges, He is to have his way with the bank. He is mistaken.
It gets worse. Next, in an unbelievable fit of honesty for a central banker, Biddle admitted that the bank was going to make money scarce. Just stop it. Congress, that there was a little bit of humor. I just wanted to point it out in case it got by you. The line was, in an unbelievable fit of honesty for a central banker. That was it. Yeah.